I believe that the president probably doesn't personally know this person. I also believe
I didn't ask if he personally knew.
I also believe that the president was probably lobbied about this, and I believe that a group of advisors probably told him that
he knows
he was over-prosecuted by Biden.
Do you think he knows that his family is in business with his company?
I think he probably knows his family.
And you think that's okay? Do you think that's okay?
Smug MAGA commentator Scott Jennings showed up once again on Abby Phillips' show, joining a panel that was unpacking Donald Trump's latest pardon, this time freeing a crypto billionaire who had been facing serious trouble. And just like clockwork, Scott jumped straight into his usual routine on Abby's program, dodging questions, bending the narrative, and twisting logic in every direction to shield his political hero from criticism. In a moment, we'll check out the key moments from this discussion featuring Abby Phillip, Scott Jennings, and the rest of the panel, and I'll be giving you my reactions as we break it all down together.
Pardon someone. I'm sure at the time he knew what it was, but I'm sure at the time that he did. Our question is, did Joe Biden even know he was pardoning anyone? And because the paper trail is so lax, like there's not the proof there that it needs to be done.
How do we jump to the conclusion that Joe Biden didn't know who he pardoned?
Because Jake Tapper wrote a book about how out of it that he was.
Okay, again, I'm going to ask, how do we jump to the conclusion that Joe Biden did not know who he pardoned, any of the people he pardoned, when Trump is literally on camera saying directly to a reporter, I don't know anything about this?
I think I answered that question, but here's one piece that we do need to really think about.
But I don't understand.
The process is so lax in these pardons. There's a lot of money, and President Biden's pardoned 4,200 people. And an average president does 400 in his tenure. Who were all these people? This is big business. The dirty secret is pardons are big business in Washington.
Yeah,
they absolutely are.
I actually agree with you.
And we need to do a better job of knowing.
But let's not forget that Donald Trump signed blanket pardons for over 1,000 January 6th rioters, including people convicted of violent crimes. He did that. And then also, in this particular case, you just mentioned the money involved, because there is money involved. Binance hired people to lobby Trump while they are also in business with Trump's family to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. Reuters just reported a couple of days ago, the president and his family raked in more than $800 million from sales of crypto assets in the first half of 2025 alone. Okay? That is literally a business that Trump is in with this guy who they just executed a pardon for. And then Trump says, I don't know anything about it. And that's okay?
Well, I think a few things could be true. One, I don't doubt one bit that President Trump isn't acquainted with the finer points of the crypto industry. I believe that. Number two, it's also true that presidents most often don't personally know the people that they're pardoning. And number three, Penny's right. People do pardon administrations lobby administrations for pardons often. I think that's probably what happened in this case. And I think there's probably a group of advisors who heard the plea and recommended it to the president.
So again, Trump says he doesn't know anything about it. This wasn't like a blanket pardon that was sent out to a bunch of people. It was one man on one day, lovely day in October. Okay. One man, right? So you're telling me that Trump has no idea that he pardoned perhaps one of the most prominent people to ever be convicted in crypto, a business that his family is deeply embedded in. Again, you want us to believe that that is not something that he would know or understand.
No, I don't.
And that if he didn't know and understand it, that would be okay with you.
I don't want you to believe anything, and I'm certainly not acquainted with all the details of it. I'm just telling you that I believe that the president probably doesn't personally know this person. I also believe.
I didn't ask if he personally knew.
I also believe that the president was probably lobbied about this, and I believe that a group of advisors probably told him that
he knows
he was over-prosecuted by Biden.
Do you think he knows that his family is in business with his company?
I think he probably knows his family.
And you think that's okay? Do you think that's okay?
He got a recommendation.
Do you think that it's okay that he pardoned somebody that his family is right at this very moment in business with, and who shortly after that pardon sent out a message promoting the Trump family crypto business? You're okay with that?
No, it's totally above board, obviously.
On the panel, Penny Nance, the token MAGA voice, did exactly what you'd expect. She deflected straight to the tired old line. Yeah, but what about Biden? It's become the go-to response for anything Trump-related. Honestly, at this point, Donald Trump could do exactly what he once joked about. shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, and his defenders, like Scott Jennings, would still find a way to shift the focus, saying, yeah, but Biden. That's their entire playbook. But setting that aside, let's talk about this pardon situation. I've mentioned before that Americans right now have far more urgent problems to deal with. A possible government shutdown, families wondering how they'll afford groceries, and people losing sleep over medical bills. While presidential pardons might not seem like a top priority, this kind of unchecked power absolutely needs limits. And then there's Scott Jennings, acting like it's no big deal, brushing it off by saying Trump probably didn't even know the man he pardoned. Really think about that. How does that make it better? Trump used his presidential power to free someone convicted of major financial crimes, seemingly because of political or personal ties, and then shrugged it off with, I didn't even know him. That kind of casual corruption should alarm everyone. Pardons are supposed to correct miscarriages of justice, not reward friends, donors, or loyal allies. It doesn't matter if it's Biden, Trump, or any president from the past. Nobody should use pardons as political favors. Yet, every time Scott Jennings shows up on Abby Phillips' show or any other network, his purpose seems clear: muddy the waters, spin the story, and shield Trump from accountability at all costs.
There's nothing to see here, guys.
A for effort. I mean, I want to let you both know. I mean, look, this was great. Nora O'Donnell was like asking a tough question, right? She was like, hey, so there's this guy, he goes by CZ, you know, he's a national security risk, and he was like, you know, moving money for Hamas. And you gave him a pardon, and Trump was like pretending like he was with his best friend. He's like, hey, listen to this. I don't even know the guy. I know nothing about it. I mean, somewhere, you know, obviously James Comer, my dear friend, who spent millions of dollars on this auto pen thing, is crying. When the speaker was asked this question, he looked like his IBS started to kick in front of the TV cameras. No, this undermines their entire message about Joe Biden, the auto pen, and not knowing pardons. And you know the one thing we don't have about Joe Biden? We don't have him on camera being asked a question. Do you know about this pardon? And Joe Biden going, no, nothing about it.
We
got Trump right there for the American people to see. Trump going, no, don't know this guy, Zhao. Don't know anything about it.
It's true. You don't have Joe Biden on camera about much of anything the last 3 months.
Or even who he was at that point. So, yeah.
Look, let me, you made the point.
Scott Jennings needs to remember that Joe Biden isn't the one running the country anymore. Donald Trump is. So, constantly dragging Biden into every discussion doesn't make sense because he's no longer the person making these decisions. And while I've said before that I didn't approve of Biden giving any special treatment to family or allies, that's beside the point right now. The real concern is what's happening under Trump's watch. The level of corruption we're seeing from this administration goes far beyond anything we've witnessed in modern politics. Whatever questionable actions people might associate with Biden look insignificant compared to the blatant and unapologetic misuse of power happening in Trump's second term. This isn't about past presidents. It's about holding the current one accountable.
Mike Johnson, because this has become a common refrain. He's asked about something that Trump says, it's all over the news, and apparently news doesn't get to Capitol Hill. Listen.
They're shut down.
I don't know anything about that. I didn't see the interview. You have to ask the president about that. I don't know any of the details of that yet. I just heard about that literally. I was walking in. I don't know the details about that. I've just read it. I didn't talk with him about that. I don't know the latest developments. That's the first I've heard of that. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what you're talking about with the children. I haven't seen that, so I'm not going to comment on it.
I don't know. It just kind of undermines the idea that, that there's some righteous indignation about the wrongdoings of your political opponents. When any time that your guy is doing something that is questionable, it's like, oh, just haven't heard about it.
Oh, that goes both ways.
I'm sure. Yeah. It sure does.
We just came out of that, watching that whole show.
Again, like, the whole premise here is that this was so bad under Biden that it was, if they could have impeached him over it, they would have. They want to undo his presidential actions over this. And now Trump says, I don't even know who you're talking about. And, Mike Johnson says, well, sorry, I just haven't heard about it.
I don't know anything about that.
Well, there you go.
I don't know. I think it certainly does undermine and undercut the president's arguments and certainly his outburst that we see on social media about the criminal family and these people who knew what, who did this. But I think the bigger question is that the president has repeatedly indicated that he is involved in these various kind of questionable endeavors. And sometimes he admits to it. Sometimes he's very open about it. And other times he says things like, I don't know. I don't really know about crypto. I don't know if that's supposed to be plausible deniability or if it's something else entirely. But as we continue to see, and I think CNN has done really excellent reporting on this, as the president has continued on, these are questions that are becoming bigger and bigger. And part of what the president has done, and part of, I think, what Republicans in Congress have done too, is they've undermined their own argument because these are the same questions that they asked of the Biden administration, of Joe Biden's family. So now I think it's only fair that you ask the same questions about the Trumps, about their endeavors, about their interests, about what's going on in terms of lobbying. And in essence, the president has set himself up for those very questions.
Well, I think one of the main questions left for the White House to answer is whether Trump did sign this pardon. If he doesn't know anything about it.
Abby Phillip made an excellent point toward the end of that segment. MAGA voices like Scott Jennings and the other guest on her show always default to the same tired refrain. What about Biden? It's their constant shield, no matter the topic. But here's the thing. If they truly believe Biden was incompetent, why would they use him as the standard for Donald Trump? If Trump is their so-called God King, shouldn't they expect him to operate at a higher level? Shouldn't it be a given that he's far more capable, more aware, and more ethical than the man they claim was unfit? Instead, their logic falls apart. They're essentially saying, sure, my guy messed up, but the other guy was bad too. That's not an argument. That's an admission of hypocrisy. And how can anyone justify a president pardoning someone he admits he doesn't even know? That's not leadership, that's chaos. Yet, night after night, Scott Jennings and others like him keep twisting themselves into knots trying to make Trump look competent, even when the evidence says otherwise. Abby Phillip tries to keep the conversation balanced, inviting different perspectives. But it would be refreshing to live in a world where both sides could simply agree on one basic principle. Presidents shouldn't be pardoning friends, donors, or total strangers convicted of real crimes. So, what do you think? Are you with Abby Phillip and the side of reason, or with Scott Jennings and his endless camera-ready defenses? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.